poor girl with her baby buys diapers with her last coins. The CEO behind her does something shocking. Imagine standing in a small, dimly lit pharmacy, counting the last few coins in your hand, while trying to figure out how to stretch them just enough to buy something as basic as diapers for your baby. That's exactly where we meet Emma Mitchell, a 23-year-old single mother whose life is a daily battle against circumstances that seem determined to break her spirit, with her 6-month-old daughter Lily cradled tightly against her chest. Emma faces one of those moments that make you wonder, how much can one person endure before hope starts to fade? But what happens next will leave you questioning whether fate has a way of stepping in when we least expect it, or if kindness still exists in a world that often feels cold and indifferent. Emma's story begins on an ordinary day that feels anything but ordinary to her. She's tired, overwhelmed, and clutching onto every ounce of dignity she has left. Her threadbare coat speaks volumes about her struggles, but there's something unshakable in her eyes. A quiet determination to keep moving forward no matter what, as she carefully examines price tags and mentally calculates what she can afford. A stranger watches from behind. This man, dressed in a tailored suit that screams success, notices not just Emma's obvious hardship, but also her strength. James Harrington, the CEO of Harrington Enterprises, isn't supposed to be here. He wasn't planning to step into someone else's life today. Yet, as he observes this young woman balancing pride and desperation, something stirs within him, something he hasn't felt in years. The tension builds as Emma approaches the checkout counter with a handful of essentials, only to realize she's short by a few dollars. It's a moment so painfully relatable, yet heart-wrenching, that it forces you to hold your breath. Will she have to put something back? Can she really choose between food for herself and necessities for her baby? Just as embarrassment threatens to overwhelm her, James steps in. His offer catches both Emma and us off guard. Is this charity? A random act of kindness? Or is there more to this unexpected encounter than meets the eye? The complexity of their interaction sets the stage for a story that goes far beyond a simple transaction at a pharmacy. What makes this moment even more compelling is the depth of character revealed through such a brief exchange. Emma's refusal to accept help without dignity shows a resilience that commands respect. She doesn't want pity, she wants fairness. And James, despite his wealth and power, carries his own burdens, loneliness, regret, and a longing for connection. Their worlds couldn't be more different, yet their shared humanity bridges the gap between privilege and poverty. You can't help but wonder, could this chance meeting change both their lives forever? As the scene unfolds, questions linger in the air. Why does James feel compelled to intervene? What drives him to follow Emma home after paying for her groceries? Is it guilt over his privileged life? Or is it something deeper, a recognition of the struggles he once faced alongside his late mother? Meanwhile, Emma wrestles with her instincts. Should she trust this man who seems genuine? Or should she guard herself against potential harm? After all, life has taught her that people rarely offer something for nothing. These internal conflicts add layers of suspense, drawing you further into their intertwined journeys. But the real intrigue lies in what happens next. Days later, James shows up at the diner where Emma works 2 jobs to make ends meet. He's not there for coffee or breakfast. He's there with a proposition that sounds too good to be true. An executive assistant position at Harrington Enterprises, complete with a salary that could transform Emma and Lily's lives overnight. At first glance, it seems like a dream come true. But as Emma weighs the opportunity, doubts creep in. Why her? Out of everyone struggling in the city, why would a powerful CEO choose her? Is this truly about giving someone a second chance? Or is there another motive hidden beneath the surface? Their dynamic evolves as Emma decides to take the leap of faith, stepping into a world she never imagined being part of. Working closely with James reveals new facets of his personality, his vulnerability, his loneliness, and his desire to create meaningful change rather than chase empty victories. For Emma, the transition isn't easy. Office politics, judgmental, whispers, and the weight of proving herself loom large. Yet, amidst these challenges, she discovers strengths she didn't know she had. Her ability to navigate complex situations and uncover truths others miss becomes crucial when a major company deal unravels under suspicious circumstances. This is where the stakes rise dramatically. Emma uncovers discrepancies in financial projections tied to a multi-million-dollar contract, the kind of discovery that could save the company or destroy it. Suddenly, she finds herself caught in a web of corporate sabotage, orchestrated by none other than James's ex-wife, Victoria Harrington. The tension escalates as alliances are tested, secrets unravel, and the line between personal and professional blurs. Every decision Emma makes carries consequences, not just for her future, but for James's too. And then comes the twist that leaves you hanging. Just as Emma prepares for a critical presentation that could determine the fate of Harrington Enterprises, she receives devastating news. Lily is sick and needs immediate care. Torn between duty and love, Emma must make an impossible choice. Meanwhile, James grapples with his growing feelings for Emma, realizing that she's become far more important to him than just an employee. Their bond deepens, but unresolved tensions simmer beneath the surface. What happens next will redefine everything they thought they knew about trust, family, and second chances. By now, you're probably wondering how this unlikely pair will navigate the storm ahead. Will Emma prove herself in a cutthroat corporate world? Can James protect her from those who seek to undermine her? Most importantly, will their connection survive the trials they face together? Stay tuned, because this is just the beginning of a journey filled with resilience, transformation, and the enduring power of human connection. In our next episode, we'll dive deeper into the challenges they encounter and the choices that shape their destinies. Until then, ask yourself, when life pushes you to the edge, what would you do to hold on? And who might appear to pull you back? As Emma sat in the hospital room, watching Lily sleep peacefully after a long and exhausting day, she couldn't help but reflect on how much her life had changed since that fateful day at Walker's Pharmacy. Every challenge she faced seemed insurmountable back then. Counting coins for diapers, juggling 2 jobs, and fighting against the weight of loneliness and despair. Yet here she was now, sitting beside her daughter, with James Harrington by her side. A man who had once been a stranger, but had become someone she trusted deeply. But as comforting as this moment felt, Emma knew they weren't out of the storm yet. Victoria's threats still lingered like a shadow over their lives, and the ripple effects of the Richardson deal were far from settled. James leaned forward slightly in his chair, his expression thoughtful as he sipped the coffee Emma hadn't touched. "You handled everything with such grace," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "Even when Victoria tried to undermine you, even when the board questioned your role, you didn't falter." Emma looked at him, her eyes softening. "I wasn't just fighting for myself or Lily anymore," she admitted. "I was fighting for something bigger, for us, for what we stand for." Her words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. It was more than just business. It was about integrity, trust, and proving that kindness could coexist with ambition without compromising either. But while Emma and James found solace in their shared triumphs, tensions outside the hospital walls continued to escalate. Victoria, unwilling to accept defeat, began orchestrating a smear campaign aimed at discrediting both Emma and James. She leaked selective details of the scandal to influential business publications, framing Emma as an unqualified outsider meddling in corporate affairs and painting James as reckless and emotionally compromised. The headlines painted a distorted picture. Harrington Enterprises CEO puts personal loyalties over professional standards. And from waitress to executive assistant, is this the future of corporate leadership? Each article fueled speculation and doubt among shareholders and employees alike, threatening to unravel all the progress they'd made. Back at Harrington Enterprises, the fallout was palpable. Board members, who had initially rallied behind James after uncovering Victoria's fraud, began to waver under public pressure. Some argued that keeping Emma in her position would only invite further scrutiny and damage the company's reputation. Others pointed to the undeniable fact that she had saved them from financial ruin, earning her place through sheer determination and skill. Meanwhile, whispers around the office grew louder. Colleagues who had once dismissed Emma as a charity case now watched her with a mix of admiration and envy. Even Greta, the head waitress from Sunnyside Diner where Emma used to work, called her one evening, gushing about seeing her name in the news. "Mika, I always knew you were destined for great things," Greta exclaimed. But Emma couldn't bring herself to feel proud, not when so much uncertainty loomed ahead. For James, the situation became increasingly personal. He found himself torn between protecting Emma and preserving the legacy of the company he'd built from scratch. Late nights at the office turned into solitary reflections in his penthouse apartment, staring out at the city skyline that no longer brought him comfort. Memories of his mother resurfaced, the sacrifices she'd made, the opportunities she'd missed because no one stepped in to help. He realized now that hiring Emma wasn't just about repaying a debt to his past. It was about rewriting the narrative of success. Success wasn't supposed to be cold and transactional. It was meant to uplift others, to create pathways where none existed before. Yet, every time he defended Emma to skeptical board members or fielded questions from reporters, he wondered if he was asking too much of her. Was he putting her in harm's way by insisting she stay? Emma, too, grappled with doubts. As grateful as she was for the chance James had given her, she couldn't ignore the toll it took on her mental and emotional well-being. Late one night, after tucking Lily into bed, she sat at her kitchen table, reviewing documents for an upcoming meeting. Her mind kept drifting to Victoria's cutting remarks during the emergency board session. Charity case, sob story, unprofessional. Those words stung more than she cared to admit. No matter how hard she worked, or how many accolades she earned, there would always be people who saw her as less deserving because of where she came from. And yet, every time she considered stepping aside to spare herself and James the backlash, she remembered why she accepted the job in the first place. Not for money or status, but for the hope of building a better future for Lily, for showing her daughter that resilience and hard work could overcome any obstacle. The tension reached its peak when Victoria returned unexpectedly to Harrington Enterprises. Though officially suspended pending investigation, she managed to call an impromptu shareholder meeting, leveraging her remaining influence to demand accountability. Standing in front of a packed conference room filled with anxious investors and curious journalists, Victoria delivered a scathing speech, accusing James of mismanagement and favoritism. "This isn't just about one employee," she declared, her voice dripping with venom. It's about the direction of this company. Are we going to let sentimentality dictate our decisions? Or are we going to prioritize excellence and professionalism? The room erupted into murmurs, some nodding in agreement, others visibly uncomfortable. Emma listened to Victoria's tirade from a monitor in James's office. Her hands clenched tightly around the armrests of her chair. She wanted nothing more than to confront Victoria directly, to defend herself, and prove that she belonged in that role. But James stopped her before she could act. "Don't give her the satisfaction," he said firmly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll handle this together. You've already proven your worth. Now it's my turn to fight for you." And fight he did. In the days leading up to the decisive board vote, a vote that would determine whether Emma retained her position and whether James maintained control of the company, he worked tirelessly to rally support. He held private meetings with key stakeholders, presenting evidence of Emma's contributions and highlighting the risks Victoria's actions posed to the company's integrity. He also reached out to former colleagues and industry allies, sharing Emma's story not as one of charity, but as an example of transformative leadership. Slowly but surely, the tide began to shift. Shareholders started questioning Victoria's motives, especially after leaked emails revealed her attempts to manipulate the Richardson projections, further tarnished her credibility. Still, the final showdown loomed large. On the morning of the board meeting, Emma arrived at the office earlier than usual, clutching a folder containing meticulously prepared reports and analyses. She wore her most professional attire, determined to exude confidence despite the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. When James joined her in the conference room, he gave her a small, encouraging smile. "Today is our day," he said simply. "No matter what happens, we've already won by staying true to ourselves." As the meeting commenced, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Board members took turns voicing their opinions, some praising Emma's dedication and others expressing lingering reservations. Then, just as it seemed the debate might drag on indefinitely, Thomas Reed, the chief financial officer, stood up and addressed the room. "I've known James Harrington for over a decade," he began, his tone measured but impassioned. "He's built this company on principles of innovation, transparency, and integrity. What happened with the Richardson deal was a violation of those principles, a deliberate attempt to deceive for personal gain. Ms. Mitchell uncovered that deception and exposed it, saving us from potential disaster. To dismiss her now would be to reward dishonesty and punish honesty. That's not the kind of company I want to lead or be part of." His words resonated deeply, prompting several other board members to voice their support. One by one, they cast their votes, each decision bringing Emma closer to vindication. Finally, the chairman announced the results. Emma would remain in her position, and James would retain full authority as CEO. Relief washed over Emma, followed quickly by gratitude for James, for Thomas, and for everyone who had believed in her. But as she glanced across the table at James, she saw something else in his eyes: resolve. They had weathered this storm together, but the journey was far from over. Together, they would continue to redefine what success truly meant, not just for themselves, but for everyone whose lives they touched. "What happens now?" Emma asked softly, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and uncertainty. James looked at her, his gaze steady but tender. "Now we figure it out together," he said. "No more running, no more hiding from what's between us. You've already shown me that life isn't about chasing success. It's about building something meaningful." Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. For so long, she'd been fighting alone, carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. But here was James, offering not just support, but partnership. Still, doubts lingered. Could their bond withstand the scrutiny they'd face? Would Lily grow up in a world where people judged her mother for daring to reach beyond her circumstances? If sensing her hesitation, James continued, "Emma, when I saw you in that pharmacy months ago, I didn't just see someone struggling. I saw strength, resilience, and dignity. Those are qualities I want in my life, in our lives. And I think Lily deserves a father who will love her as much as you do." His words hit Emma like a wave, washing away years of fear and self-doubt. She had always believed love meant sacrifice, that happiness came second to survival. But maybe, just maybe, she could have both. The next morning, Emma returned to work with Lily, safely recovering at home. The office buzzed with renewed energy, now that the Richardson deal was secured under honest terms. Board members who had once questioned her presence now greeted her with respect, acknowledging her role in saving the company. Even Thomas Reed stopped by her desk to commend her analytical skills, saying, "You've earned this, Emma. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." It was a validation she hadn't realized she needed until now. But the real test came later that week during an emergency shareholder meeting, called by Victoria. Though officially suspended, she managed to rally enough discontented investors to demand accountability. Standing before the packed conference room, Victoria delivered a scathing speech, accusing James of mismanagement and favoritism. "This isn't just about one employee," she declared, her voice dripping with venom. "It's about the direction of this company. Are we going to let sentimentality dictate our decisions? Or are we going to prioritize excellence and professionalism?" Emma listened from the sidelines, her heart pounding as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement. Others exchanged uncomfortable glances. Just as Emma feared the tide might turn against them, Thomas stood up and addressed the room. "I've known James Harrington for over a decade," he began, his tone measured but impassioned. "He's built this company on principles of innovation, transparency, and integrity. What happened with the Richardson deal was a violation of those principles, a deliberate attempt to deceive for personal gain. Ms. Mitchell uncovered that deception and exposed it, saving us from potential disaster. To dismiss her now would be to reward dishonesty and punish honesty. That's not the kind of company I want to lead or be part of." His words resonated deeply, prompting several other board members to voice their support. One by one, they cast their votes, each decision bringing Emma closer to vindication. Finally, the chairman announced the results. Emma would remain in her position, and James would retain full authority as CEO. Relief washed over Emma, followed quickly by gratitude for James, for Thomas, and for everyone who had believed in her. But as she glanced across the table at James, she saw something else in his eyes. Resolve. They had weathered this storm together, but the journey was far from over. Together, they would continue to redefine what success truly meant, not just for themselves, but for everyone whose lives they touched. In the weeks that followed, Emma and James grew closer. Navigating their new dynamic with care and intention, James introduced Emma to his closest friends, who welcomed her warmly, while Emma invited him to share quiet family moments with her and Lily. Watching James play peekaboo with Lily or read her bedtime stories filled Emma with a sense of completeness she hadn't known was possible. For James, these moments reminded him of the joy he'd missed out on in his pursuit of professional success. Slowly but surely, they began to envision a future together, one built on trust, mutual respect, and shared values. By the time summer rolled around, Emma found herself standing on a sunlit balcony overlooking the city, dressed in a simple yet elegant gown. Beside her stood James, his hand clasped firmly in hers, as they exchanged vows before a small gathering of loved ones. Lily, now walking confidently, toddled down the aisle holding a basket of flower petals, eliciting laughter and applause from the guests. It was a day neither Emma nor James had ever imagined possible. A celebration of love, resilience, and second chances. Looking back, Emma realized how far she'd come since that fateful day at Walker's Pharmacy. From counting coins for diapers to becoming a cornerstone of one of the city's most respected companies. Her journey had been anything but ordinary, yet it was the people she met along the way, James, Mrs. Garcia, Greta, and even Thomas, who reminded her that kindness still existed in the world. And for James, Emma and Lily had become his anchor, grounding him in what truly mattered. As they danced under the stars that night, surrounded by laughter and music, Emma leaned into James and whispered, "Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." He smiled, pulling her closer. "Thank you for reminding me why I started all of this in the first place," he replied. In that moment, they weren't just a CEO and his executive assistant or a single mother and her daughter. They were a family, forged not by obligation, but by choice. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And sometimes, that was enough.